Greetings, viewers. This is Little Beep, and I am here with not 1v1 Commander this time, but instead Standard. I just ran through a league with this incredibly interesting deck I saw on Reddit. Wish I had the username handy of the user who posted it, but somebody created a beautiful description of this deck they called Anguished Affinity, which is a version of the standard improvised deck that I've tried playing before that kind of takes advantage of the broken synergies between artifact producers from the Kaladesh block and cards like Metallic Rebuke and Herald of Anguish. The problem with this deck is that aside from 4 Herald of Anguish, it was often really hard to find ways to win the game. You could play cards like Maverick Thopterist, which were terrible, just kind of dorky little creatures that weren't that good even with a reduced cost, and eventually your opponent's sheer card quality had a good chance of winning out if you couldn't get them with a Herald. Thankfully, Dominaria solved this problem by giving us a couple of really bonkers cards for this deck. The first is the Antiquities War, a saga that essentially says draw 2 cards, a little better than draw 2 cards because you're running enough artifacts that you get a little bit of selection off of this, and then we'll kill your opponent on the 3rd turn unless they have something like a Settle the Wreckage, because a single Fumigate is not going to do it because the artifacts only become 5/5 creatures on your turn, and you tend to attack for like 25 or 30 damage with this deck, so it can overwhelm even a pretty well-established board from the opponent. You also, of course, get Karn. You know about Karn. Karn makes enormous creatures in this deck. The -2 tends to create 5/5s or 6/6s right off the bat, and just in case the creatures aren't going to help you much at that moment, he's a card advantage engine, just a overall really solid planeswalker. Definitely an upgrade from Tezzeret. We still do run a couple of Tezzerets in the sideboard over here, just to give us a little bit of extra payoff in matchups where you don't need to go as fast, like control matchups. At least that's the way I've been sideboarding. But the problem with Tezzeret is that he's really good at killing creatures, but he doesn't create any board presence until his ultimate happens, which is kind of 3 turns of sitting around and waiting for a cast out or something like that. So, good sideboard option, but Karn definitely better in the main deck. So far I've been happy with the numbers of 3 Antiquities War, 3 Karn. Could go up to 4 Antiquities War. I don't think I'd want to necessarily go up to 4 Karn. As a payoff, the Legend rule does matter a little bit, but very much still experimenting with the deck. As you can see, there are a couple of singleton slots. I just copied the list from Reddit. You have 1 Ether Sphere Harvester, just to give you a little bit of extra buffer against aggro, gives you something to do on the 3rd turn of the game, which often is, you're not doing a lot because all your payoffs are basically 4 mana. Herald of Anguish always comes down on turn 4, can't come down on turn 3 in this deck. And we have 1 Sentinel Totem, which is just a 1-mana artifact. We wanted 1 more of those. Scries can deal with Godpharaoh's Gift or something like that. It kind of is a reasonable card here. Now, for budget reasons, I was playing 1 additional island in the deck compared to the Scavenger Grounds, the extra Scavenger Grounds that the Reddit poster had placed. I really wish this island were Scavenger Grounds. I just won a league with this deck, so I'm going to use the winnings from that to get another Scavenger Grounds to replace this island, at which point our Godpharaoh's Gift matchup gets even a little bit better. But I just, ran the deck through a league. It was one of the easiest standard leagues I've ever played. The matchups felt generally pretty lopsided, and we just 5-0'd pretty easily. The deck is doing something, attacking at an angle that makes most other standard decks, they just can't deal with it. You are gaining tremendous amounts of life with Battle at the Bridge against Mono Red. You are, having well-placed counters against control decks to get your big stuff through, and at that point, Herald of Anguish, how do you kill him? Basically just Vraska's Contempt and Cast Out, and Ixalan's Binding are the only ways. Those are all kind of slow and expensive. They come down on the same turn as Herald of Anguish. At that point, the opponent's already discarded a card. They need to have the answer immediately. Something like Seal Away or Settle the Wreckage won't work because you don't have to attack with this. As the Reddit poster put it, this can just be an enchantment that says your opponent discards a card every turn, and that's pretty good and hard to deal with on its own. Anyway, let's, with no further ado, run through the league. We'll take a quick look at the sideboard first. We got a couple of Yahenni's Expertise for token decks. Didn't run any of those in the league, but glad we have them. Crypt of Condemnation for Godpharaoh's Gift. Zahid Jinn the Lamp is a card I would probably just replace at this point. I might just put in a 3rd Yahenni's Expertise or another Crook of Condemnation or something like that. I just never found a time to board in the 5/6 flyer. It's not bad, but on turn 4 you'd much rather be making a stream of 6/6 of the Karn or threatening to kill your opponent with the Antiquities War. Another Antiquities War for decks that don't have Settle the Wreckage and are very weak to that ultimate of the saga. 4 Negates for control to come in for the Battle Bridge. And a couple of Deep Freeze, which, not sure about these. I guess they're meant to be a stop for the Scarab God or Hazaret or Galta or other cards that are a little hard to deal with. Probably mostly Scarab God and Galta. Hazaret, you're just supposed to battle the bridge or counter it. have not found the time to board these in yet, but I'll keep the sideboard pretty much the same for at least a couple more leagues. Anyway, now let's move to the games, which were a lot of fun. This deck is surprisingly grindy for a deck that only has 10 cards that do anything. So, we start off with a matchup against Blue-White God Pharaoh's Gift, and we were a little fortunate in this one. We wound up keeping a hand that was Merchant Stock hand, 3 lands, 2 Skirvos Schematics, Cogworks, Bundle. So there's no payoff here, but we have pretty much lots of artifacts. If we draw another land, we can start using Merchant Stock hand. People don't tend to kill Merchant Stock hand fast enough, but this hand has almost everything. We have 10 payoff cards. We're just going to hope we get there. And we have a Scavenger Grounds, which is a nice hedge against decks that might be trying to win through the graveyard. As it turns out, we are up against a Blue-White God Pharaoh's Gift list. We draw Herald of Anguish. Perfect, so we're going to be doing that on turn 4 if we can. To start getting our beats in with Merchant Stock hand. I think that this is my first game with the deck. I think in retrospect I just would not be attacking with Merchant Stock hand. That's not really how we're going to win the game, and it does risk us falling to something like a Seal Away for no reason. We could just be leaving this up and drawing cards with it. So we make our artifacts, and yep, looking like Blue-White God Pharaoh's Gift, probably. So we just keep making servos, beating down a little bit. At this point, once you know it's Blue-White God Pharaoh's Gift, they don't really play Seal Away as far as I know. I mean, deck lists are in flux. It's the first week of Standard, but been okay attacking now. So opponent mills a land, Chart of Courses, gets another land drop, drops an Angel Invention in the graveyard, very standard start. We've been hiding the Scavenger Grounds just in case it turned out to be relevant, so now we play it. And we could just cast Herald of Anguish this turn. The risk of that is that our opponent could mill a God Pharaoh's Gift with Search for Azcanta, or discard a God Pharaoh's Gift to the Herald of Anguish. Probably not the second one, because they would have just discarded the God Pharaoh's Gift to Chart a Course. But who knows, they might have seen that we're an improvised deck, they might have been planning something weird. So we could, in theory, just leave up Scavenger Grounds, and use Merchant Stock hand if they don't do anything threatening this turn. So, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to play Herald. Again, they probably don't have a God Pharaoh's Gift in hand, and this is going to put a lot of pressure on them. The nice thing about Herald of Anguish is it's even pretty good at stopping the payoffs for God Pharaoh's Gift. So if they do play out an Angel of Invention, it's kind of awkward, but then we remove their graveyard from the game, and we have this large creature that can shrink their Angel. Anyway, so they wind up Field of Ruining the Scavenger Grounds. One risk of playing it out there. We didn't have any other lands, so I think we had to do it, but definitely hold the Scavenger Grounds until you absolutely can't hold anymore against these decks. But that means we're untapping with a Herald of Anguish, so our opponent's taking lots of card disadvantage. We draw Battle at the Bridge. That's another answer if they do reanimate an Angel of Invention. And here we just get to attack for a bunch of damage, and now if they do manage to get a God Pharaoh's Gift back this turn, we can just kill whatever they bring back with Herald of Anguish, and otherwise Merchant Stock hand can just start drawing us cards, drawing us counters, and looking for other tools that can help us grind this deck out. So end of turn, our opponent cycles a farmland, and has not managed to find a God Pharaoh's Gift yet. They discard a Plains. Now they mill the God Pharaoh's Gift with Search for Azcanta. That's a lot of fun. Flip that over. So they did manage to find it on turn 5. Not too bad as a start from them. They bring it back. They get back an Angel of Invention. And, well, it doesn't actually matter because we're just going to kill the Angel of Invention in response to the Fabricate trigger with Herald of Anguish. Angel goes away, and given that we do have a Herald of Anguish on board, these 2 servos are not going to help our opponent block at all. And so they just have nothing that interacts with Herald of Anguish, and they're dead. So moving on to game 2. Our sideboard plan, we brought in Crook of Condemnation, brought out the Battle at the Bridge, brought in some Negates, brought out Aethersphere Harvester, and I believe brought out 1 Renegade map. Just a pretty standard plan for against the controlling decks where you just want to have answers and maybe not go as fast. Our opener, we go ahead and keep 2 Negates, great, Merchant Stock hand, awesome, and 1 Artifact Generator. That's pretty much all we need, so we just get to sit on counters and use Merchant Stock hand, which is a lot of fun. Our opponent probably isn't going to be able to answer this early. They dump another Angel in the graveyard. Now we have Metallic Rebuke, which is awesome. We're not going to use it yet because we're scared of Refurbish and other things that come down on turn 4. We're not really scared of a Champion of Wits here. So we're just going to get the artifact board developed, make sure that we can, if need be, double counter in future turns with Metallic Rebuke and Negate. So yep, just sitting here, beating down with Dockhand Servo. Opponent just passing here, so they don't have any kind of refurbish plan, but that means they might be about to cast an Angel on turn 5. That's the most threatening thing they can do outside of the God Pharaoh's Gift plan, so we're going to be ready for that. So now we just play a land, And attack with nothing, just in case we need to go like Metallic Rebuke Negate. I think I should have attacked with a servo. I think the math doesn't punish me for that, but... Oh no, we wanted to use it for Merchant Stockhand. So that's something to keep in mind. Merchant Stockhand searches deeper the more artifacts you have, so... Again, you don't usually win with servo attacks, so generally it's better to hold them back and draw with the Dockhand. Opponent slams Angel of Invention. We have Metallic Rebuke. Playing some Mana Leaks in Standard. We draw Servo Schematic here, so now we have a few options, and we don't want to play the Schematic yet. We have this Dockhand up, and this Dockhand can really get you a surprisingly large advantage very fast, so we're just going to hold this here. Hope they don't have the third Angel of Invention. They did not. Now we get to start drawing some cards. Better than drawing cards. Alright, we just grab another Servo Schematic. So now we get to play out a Servo Schematic, which means if Dockhand gets to live for another turn, now we're impulsing every turn, which is pretty good. This little one-mana artifact, I was surprised it hadn't found a home yet, but this is a good home for it. And we're attacking with servos. Basically, again, I don't really know how to play this deck yet. We're just kind of making random decisions here. It was late at night. And think in general, I wish I had just held that servo back, because we are eventually going to grind our opponent out if we get this Dockhand going with enough artifacts untapped. So now they hit the 7 mana. They do not hit 7 mana. There's no Godpharaoh's Gift coming down. Even if there were, it would be laughably bad against our hand of 3 negates. Now we just get to start drawing cards at our leisure. And we find a Crook of Condemnation. Perfect. Oh man, we hit both of our artifacts. Both of our artifacts that hate out on the graveyards. We're just going to grab Crook of Condemnation here. At the time that I made this decision, I thought that Sentinel Totem entered the battlefield tapped, which I was wrong, but the nice thing about Crook is that it helps us manage the graveyard in the long term, so I think I'd still take that in retrospect. Now that we've tapped everything down, our opponent has a cast out to hit the Merchant's Dockhand. Alright, they have traded 4 mana for 1 mana and 2 cards. Or 4 mana and we got 2 cards and we had 1 mana. So now we have the Antiquities War, so we could slam this and the Crook. The danger is if we slam Antiquities War and play the Crook of Condemnation, we're leaving ourselves without quite enough mana to remove the graveyard, and so something like a Godpharaoh's Gift and a 7th land could still wreck us. So we're just going to give it one more turn, put the Crook down. We are in no hurry at this point. We got some servos, we're beating them down slowly. We get to crack the puzzle knot using Spire of Industry, if we want to at the end of the next turn. We are fairly resilient to most of the things our opponent could do from here. They slam Ixalan's Binding. Yep, they got to go after Crook of Condemnation, which means we eat 2 of their Angel Inventions. I like that. Then at the end of the turn, we go ahead and just crack the puzzle knot. Now we have 3 servos. And we drew a Karn. Alright, so now we have the choice of whether we want to cast Karn with Negate backup or Antiquities War with Negate backup. And we decide to go for Karn here. Just provides a lethal damage on the next turn if our opponent can't put something on the board that matters. Our opponent goes for the Naked Godpharaoh's Gift. And yeah, it turns out when you remove this deck's graveyard, it doesn't do very much. So now we just play Servo Schematic and attack for lethal, and that's the match. Moving on to the second match here, we are up against Near Death running blue-white control. And the blue-white control matchup, I think the control matchup is really good for this deck. The one deck that worries me is mono-red or other fast aggro decks. But as you're going to see, the control matchup's tools, control deck's tools just do not line up with what we have. So we get Zalfirin Void, by the way. We run 4 of this card. It's really good. It is not quite land that draws you a card when it hits the battlefield, but the Scry one is really valuable because in this deck you're generally looking for something very clear. You either really want to pay off cards, you're scrying away anything that's not a Herald of Anguish or a Karn or an Antiquities War, or you really want to land, and so you're scrying away anything that isn't a land. It just is really good with selection. You'll see it be really good in later games here. Unfortunately, I don't think it lets us see the Scry, which is sad. Let's see. Okay, so we topped whatever there was with the Scry, so it looks like we just got that 4th land we wanted. So we start out with Puzzle Knots. Opponent gets to search for Escanta. Their turn 2 looks better than our turn 2, but that's okay, we're going to catch up. So we get to play Servo Schematic here. Attack for 1, hold up Metallic Rebuke. Opponent just cycles a Hieroglyphic Illumination. Ouch! Kept the 2 land search for Escanta hand, is missing the land drop a bit, so we're just going to punish them really badly with a Karn. Oops, with a Herald of Anguish, sorry. So Herald of Anguish Better clock, make sure we take some cards out of their hand just in case they have like Cast Out and Fumigate and such. Does turn on the Search for Azcanta a little faster, but I don't think that matters very much. In knowing what I know now, I might have just thrown down Karn there, because Karn adds even more damage to the board, and makes it easier to cast Herald by putting artifacts down, but whatever. We are up against an opponent who missed a land drop, and we are going to punish them really harshly. So opponent does find the seal away. We counter it. So normally you would not attack with Herald in this kind of situation, but at this point, they're mana screwed, we know that. We're just trying to get them dead as opposed to challenging their resources. Their problem is not having too few cards in hand. This does leave us open to something like a Cast Out on the Herald of Anguish, given that we tapped out, but now we have another threat in Karn, so there's nothing our opponent could possibly do that gets rid of both of these threats. They find another seal away for the Herald. And in retrospect, again, we were making a lot of mistakes with this deck. In this first league we played, we should have just minused Karn there. We could have almost literally had lethal. Had we drawn another artifact here, for example, and just pressuring their life total this much, especially when they have Ipurivia let down, feels really good. But instead we just have the third Herald of Anguish. This was a pretty good draw. Keep in mind that, of course, if we'd had an Antiquities War on turn 4, they would have been dead by now. They have no answers to something that big. And we still have Scavenger Grounds, which we can use to manage Azcanta. So we go ahead and remove their graveyard here. No fifth land for you, in case you did find the fourth land. They did find the fourth land, but at this point they are just too far behind. This time we're not going to run Herald and settle the wreckage, but because we're attacking with 7 power, they still do need to settle the wreckage. So we extract... oh, Blink of an Eye, never mind. So they discarded Settle the Wreckage earlier. They had Blink of an Eye for the Karn token, which is not bad. That's something to keep in mind against the blue-white control decks in Dominaria Standard. But we just keep grinding with Karn. Now they absolutely need to Fumigate this turn, so they need a land drop and a Fumigate. Again, they probably should be dead by now. I think if I'd been a little more aggressive with Karn, we'd have been fine. As it turns out, they do hit the land drop, and they did keep a Fumigate in hand, so now we're both down to 1 card. I sacrifice one of my servos to kill the other servo, so they gain a little bit less life off this Fumigate, by the way. But we still do have an active Karn. Karn reveals another Cogworker's Puzzle Knot. We get a Renegade map instead. Nothing terribly exciting. But Karn does beat Azcanta in a card selection war when Azcanta is not flipped. So we just keep thinning our deck, getting lands out of there. So now we've kind of run out of payoffs, and we're getting a little bit punished maybe. We decided to make a construct here just to pressure them while they have very little stuff in hand. As it turns out, they have Torrential Gearhulk, which lets them Blink of an Eye a construct, and yeah, now we're in a little bit of trouble. So we failed to capitalize well enough on this opponent early. We probably should have been attacking with Herald so freely, and should have just saved their Metallic Rebuke for a Fumigate. We lose Karn because I'm an idiot and forgot that you can crack Cogworker's Puzzle Knot here. So we should have, of course, used the Prophetic Prism to generate white mana, sacrifice the Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, and just block the Gearhulk. I'm sure that the creator of the deck, if they could see this right now, would be screaming, but we are not punished. We draw the 4th Herald of Anguish. Keep in mind that a Karn or an Antiquities War would have been pretty good here too, since I did notice the Puzzle Knot at this point. So we get Herald down. Our opponent can't keep cards in their hand anymore. They're going to mill themselves so they can flip a search over. Torrential Gearhulk cannot attack past Herald of Anguish. They use Hieroglyphic Illumination. Do not find an answer to the Herald, and they don't run very many of those. Pretty much a Fumigator bust here in the game 1 at least. Now we get to start making servos with the servo schematic. We draw another Karn. Alright, so at this point we've hit 5 of our payoff cards, 3 Heralds, and a couple of Karns in the course of... am I counting that right? Yeah, 3 Heralds, 2 Karns in the first 23 cards with the advantage of a Scry here, so maybe a little bit lucky, but not super lucky by any means. Especially since in Antiquities War, the 1 payoff we're missing would have killed our opponent by now. We start to Herald our opponent, we have an active Karn, and now we are bailed out of the kind of iffy plays earlier by the raw power of the payoffs this deck can generate. We start making some extra servos, now their life total is very low. We have Battle at the Bridge, which lets us just kill the Gearhulk real dead. They decide to commit our demon in response to the Karn activation, so that they can exile our demon with a silver counter on it, but we just get another Battle of the Bridge instead. We kill the Torrential Gearhulk. And let's see if our opponent's last card is a Settle the Wreckage here. Oh, nope, we're not going to see that. Is that because we knew it was a Settle the Wreckage? We did know it was a Settle the Wreckage. Okay, so we knew they had a Settle the Wreckage from their Ascanta activation. We just knocked them down to 4 with an active card and lethal power on the board, so they got to hold up that Settle the Wreckage at all times. They cast out Karn, holding up Settle the Wreckage. They got to hope we don't have Metallic Rebuke. Yeah, this game was a squeaker. Can't believe it was this close. Alright, now we finally draw the Antiquities War. We know they can't counter it, or they'll die when we attack them. So now they better have another Settle the Wreckage in 2 turns. We just attack with a 1 construct. It gets settled. Get our last basic out of the deck. Opponent uses Ascanta again, revealing a Blink of an Eye, which will hold off the servos a little bit. We keep filtering through things with the Antiquities War. We get another Merchant Stockhand, which is excellent. They're going to need to answer that almost immediately. Swing in with some servos. They cycle Blink of an Eye, killing off one of those. We just get to slam Merchant Stockhand here. So now they probably need a Fumigate to kill the Stockhand, or a Cast Out or something like that. But they also need to hold up enough mana for Settle the Wreckage. And here they're just going to be digging with a Hieroglyphic Illumination, and they do not find the last Settle the Wreckage. They're dead to the Antiquities War here. Even if they had the Settle, we get to use Merchant Stockhand and look for a Metallic Rebuke before we attack, which is nice. And yeah, things are... Again, we messed up pretty badly with the early turns. We just ground them out really well there. Game 2. We keep an opener of 4 lands, which is kind of much for this 21 land deck, but 2 of them are Zalfrin Voids, so we're going to be able to avoid drawing extra lands here. We have a Negate, we have an Antiquities War. We draw a 5th land, a little awkward, but we do see a Metallic Rebuke on top, which I like a lot with the Zalfrin Void. We're just going to start holding up Metallic Rebuke in case they get any bright ideas about playing Search for Ascanta. Field of Ruin, by the way, not very good against our deck. Our lands pretty much all get value when they come onto the battlefield, or they generate colored mana, which we can just get even if they sack Field of Ruin. So here we draw another Renegade map. We Zalfrin Void, scry a Zalfrin Void to the bottom, so that helps us find a card a turn earlier than we might have otherwise. Play another map. We're just kind of sitting here patiently trying to use the Antiquities War. They sort of ruin our scry by shuffling our deck, whatever. Get their white source out. So now it's just a battle of one of us is going to try a payoff card, the other player is going to counter it, and then the other player is going to have a chance to do something really big. So the question is who gets to do this first. They Hieroglyphic Illumination into their turn, but I'm pretty happy to sitting here playing Draw Go with them. I can be patient, I can make servos, I can... Next turn I now get to start thinking about threatening like Antiquities War plus Metallic Rebuke, which is really nice. We were 1 land away from doing that this turn. They cast Lyra Dawnbringer. Okay, never mind. We have to use this Metallic Rebuke right now. That's a thing to keep in mind. These control decks do like their Baneslayer Angels, but thankfully we have some Tezzeret's boarded in to deal with this problem, so we did the same sideboard plan as last time for any controlling deck. Just more action, fewer cheap artifacts, and no Aethersphere Harvesters or Battle of the Bridges. Now we get to resolve a Herald of Anguish with Negate back up, which should be a very good position for us, but we do manage to lose this game somehow, so let's see whether I screw something up. Now a second Negate. Again, things are looking really good. Now we're not attacking with this Herald of Anguish. We're not going to walk into Settle the Wreckage. Possible we maybe should have, given that we have the second Negate here. It's always difficult to decide when to apply pressure, when to just discard all your opponent's cards. Right now they have no long-term source of card advantage, so we're just going to pile on a little bit here, cast the Antiquities War, say, hey, you need to have a Settle the Wreckage in 2 turns, and you also need to deal with this Herald of Anguish in the meantime. We grab Prophetic Prism off Antiquities War, so we can draw a card later. And our opponent goes for a cast out, and we have to negate that one. We would rather keep our Herald of Anguish around. So now we're giving them the chance to have Fumigate into Settle the Wreckage here. It's possible we really should have just sat on this Herald and just kept ripping away at their hand and forced them to run their few removal spells into the negates. So lo and behold, they do have the Fumigate. We Antiquities War, grab another Prophetic Prism. We get to draw a couple of extra cards here. Metallic Rebuke is great. Okay. So now it's looking like we should be able to attack for lethal with multiple counters up, except for that we are 1 artifact short, which is terrible. So don't think there's any way we could have avoided that. We actually should have played the Renegade map last turn. I'm wrong. We could have avoided that. We could have just played Renegade map, had Negate up anyway for anything that they might have used to remove the Antiquities War, and then we would have a lethal attack, but instead, as you can see, I'm misplaying with this deck and it's still just amazing. So we get to make 4 5/5s 20 is not 21, unfortunately. 1 is not 0. Swing in. They go for the settle. We say no to that. We have another counter in case they try to counter our counter. They go to 1. And yep, we're going to need to put some extra pressure on somehow. So we have nothing that's going to be a creature end of turn, so I need to play the servo schematic. Make a servo. And now, because we made this mistake, the rest of the game is going to be kind of us getting sadly ground out. It is a pretty funny situation, though. They play a Karn. They're forced to make a 1-1 chump blocker, so we're trading our servo schematic for a turn of Karn. They have just enough mana up to avoid Metallic Rebukes. They're holding on for dear life. Of note, if either of these servo schematics were a Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, we would have won the game by now. We draw the third servo schematic. We really need a Puzzle Knot. Attack with the servo, get blocked by a construct, and yeah, the rest of the game, the way it plays out, is we just keep drawing servo schematics and not puzzle knots. We don't find any more finishers, and Karn is eventually able to start actually plussing. And at that point, when we're top decking against an opponent with a Planeswalker, we are pretty dead. We don't have any cards that are uncounterable or otherwise able to really reverse the situation from this point. So, close one. Should have been an easy win if I just played the Renegade map the turn before that Antiquities War went off. Again, still learning the deck. Ugly loss there. Third game is kind of hilarious. So we keep a reasonable hand. It's got a map, it's got an Antiquities War, Metallic Rebuke, everything we could want. Oh, sorry, this isn't the game I was thinking of. There was another game where we failed to draw a payoff for a very long time. This is not that game. This is a different sort of game where we just have a really excellent hand, can just hold up counters in Merchant Stock hand. Our opponent cycles a cast out. Tries for a search for Escana. We're just going to counter this now. No card selection for you. We have a Karn. And yeah, so this is just a brutal victory there. I don't know if it's correct to attack with Merchant Stock hand. They could have Seal Away. And as it turns out, they are not having a good time with their... Oh, they hit the 4th land drop. Yeah, this is a game where they do eventually get mana screwed and die that way. So we just plus Karn, play Antiquities War. Start hitting our opponent for lots of damage. Probably could have minus Karn there. I'm still a little worried about Fumigate. And yeah, here's where they miss their 5th land drop, and their deck really needs to be hitting a lot of land drops. At this point, because of Antiquities War and Merchant Stock hand, we have so much access to card selection that we're just going to be able to put up a consistent stream of threats. And we still haven't found a counter, which is a little awkward, but we're just producing cards. We use Karn to get a Herald of Anguish back into our hand from when our opponent had exiled. We attack with a construct. Our opponent's forced to settle the wreckage here. So because we still haven't found another counter, we can't just run Herald out there, because we could just Fumigate. So instead we play another Antiquities War and say, hey, you need to have settled the wreckage on 2 consecutive turns now, because we do have this Cogworker's Puzzle Knot to generate additional artifacts. And as it turns out, our opponent is not going to have settled the wreckage on 2 consecutive turns, and the game ends swiftly with the use of this Antiquities War. Because they have the first Settle the Wreckage, we get basically the rest of the lands out of our deck. Keep using Karn, and now they have to have another Settle the Wreckage. We can start using Merchant Stock hand. Really just want a counter spell at this point. Counter would be great. We hit another Antiquities War, which I'll just take instead. Sure, whatever. Get Tezzeret, threaten lethal again, and I stand corrected because they did have... Oh, blink of an eye, not another Settle the Wreckage. So now they go to 3. So it turns out Merchant Stock hand would have been lethal there. I think that, given our position we're in, losing could pretty much only happen if they have Settle the Wreckage into consecutive cast out, so I still don't mind not attacking with it, but something to consider. Blink of an eye is a card these decks play. So we just go Planeswalker, Antiquities War, and yeah, nothing our opponent does here is going to help very much. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is cute, but we're still just dock-handing, grabbing more artifacts. Tezzeret's about to ultimate. Now we finally find a Metallic Rebuke, so now we're going to be able to destroy our opponent. We do whiff with the Antiquities War, seeing our other 3 Herald of Anguish, which is awkward. But the board is just too far out of our opponent's control here. We're just slamming finishers of countless types, and I think we need to kill Herald of Anguish and somehow keep up Settle the Wreckage for our inevitable Antiquities War attack. They can't do all of these things. we get to just draw, again, anticipate with the Merchant Stockhand. This Merchant Stockhand has been quietly grabbing us card after card after card and making it harder and harder for our opponent to win. And, yeah, our opponent sadly scoops just as we draw our second counterspell and hit them to a nice, clean -22. And that was the control matchup. So opponent was a little stuck on lands there, but I honestly don't think it would have mattered very much. We were a little stuck on counters, and the problem is usually just that their answers do not line up with our threats. Blink of an Eye is about as good as they can do to stop one card activation, spending an entire turn to do that. And the Fumigates and Settles are reasonable sometimes against our board, but it's just everything they do is losing cards, and they do not want to be going down cards every time they exchange. Then we run into a mono-green aggro deck, so I'm just going to skip these first two games. First game, they mulliganed to 5 and died. Second game, we mulliganed and died. Third game is where things get interesting. So this is a mono-green Turbo Galta list. We play first, keep a hand with a Karn and some artifacts, pretty much what we want to be seeing. We Zalfir and Void, keeping something on top, don't recall what it was. Make a servo, have our third land drop, and this is the kind of awkward part where, unless we have a Metallic Rebuke or a Battle at the Bridge, this deck really doesn't do very much on turn 3. But their first three turns were not great, just a Branchwalker and a Scavenger. So we have the choice between Herald and Karn here. I like Herald because it also lets us cast the servo schematic, also because it just kills their board. So if we untap safely with the Herald of Anguish and they haven't developed their board a lot more, we just kill 2 of their creatures and they are way beyond dead. As it is, they do manage to go for their deck's kind of nut draw of the turn 4 Galta. And Galta is a little hard for us to deal with. We don't have the deep freezes in right now, I guess that's why they're there. Even something like Tezzeret or Battle at the Bridge is not large enough to stop Galta, but we do have one card that can stop a Galta. And that card is Karn, Scion of Urza. So we're going to not be attacking with the Herald here, we just need to get the board to a state where things are controlled. So we make this construct. What this does is it forces our opponent to either attack Karn with Galta, at which point we get to keep our 6/6 around and grow the 6/6 much larger, and then eventually use the construct plus Herald of Anguish activations to take down Galta. Or they just go for us with Galta, at which point we make, we turn our 6/6 into a 10/10 next turn, then make another 10/10 with Karn. They both turn into 11/11s, and even Galta does not fight past Karn constructs in this deck. So they go for Lifecrafter's Bestiary. I think they're selling in for a long game. They go for an all-out attack, which I guess I understand. They just kind of lose 2 creatures here, but I think they're just trying to put me low so they can pressure me with Galta. I think attacking Karn is still the way to go there, because having to hold up Herald of Anguish activations makes me use a lot of resources, but whatever. Now they have a Galta, which is a 12/12, which is nice, but we have 2 11/11s, which is enough. Guess they didn't even want to wait around to see if they drew a Fatal Push, because this game is over. They're going to lose their last card in hand to Herald of Anguish. And yep, Karn beats Galta handily. Match 4, ran into Mono Red, got a little lucky in game 1 and just stomped them flat in game 2. So we are on the draw here. They get a pretty fast start with a Soulscar Mage. We have a Merchant Stockhand, which just gets shocked. Looks like they kept an aggressive 1-lander here, but they're going to draw out of it pretty fast. We just make a Prophetic Prism, draw the card here. Don't really want blockers since we can't block Soulscar Mage profitably. They do get Fanatical Firebrand down, so they're getting a good early start here. We have a Cogworker's Puzzle Knot making a servo to stop the Firebrand, holding a Metallic Rebuke, so we at least trade 1 for 1 with a Firebrand. They have a Lightning Strike, and we decided to Metallic Rebuke this just because I know that it's almost certain that next turn we're just going to Metallic Rebuke something else, or draw a land and tap out for a 4-drop, something like that, so we just need to be using our mana here. We're going to try not to die with a handful of cards, even though this only really prevents 2 damage. As you'll see later, that 2 damage turns out to be kind of important. So we draw up to 11. Off the mages. Draw Sentinel Totem, which isn't amazing. It does scry 1, though. So we successfully scry a land to the top here. And then we just Battle the Bridge one of the Soulscar Mages, just try to keep our life total high. Earthshaker puts us back down to 11. And here's another place where we have a choice. So we could play the Antiquities War, or we could play Karn. Antiquities War threatens to do a lot of damage in a couple turns, but I really think we just need the blocker with Karn. We need to hope they don't have an Abrade here. It's a little tricky. They've only played 2 lands here, so it's not like they're holding a lot of spells in hand that they just didn't have a chance to play. So it's possible they're just holding like 2 Hazarets and an on-crop Crasher or something like that. So against that kind of board, we really just like this 4-4. As it turns out, they abrade the Construct, kill Karn. So now we're going to have to go for the Antiquities War. Which we do, grab a Prism. So in a couple of turns, our opponent's going to be getting attacked for 25. They have to be ready for that, but unfortunately they find the 4th land just in time, slam the Hazaret. If we'd have 5th land, we could have just Metallic Rebuked the Hazaret, and the game would have been pretty simple from there, but things are far from simple. We are dropping to 3. Not at all good. We draw another Battle the Bridge, though. That's very good. Okay. So we're going to deal with the first Hazaret here. Play a Prophetic Prism, looking to hit land drops, if at all possible. And nope, just another Antiquities War. So we play Dockhand. So now we're trying to focus on making this Antiquities War as deadly as possible next turn. We're going to leave the Dockhand untapped because there's a chance they just play another Hazaret and we need to chump it. Lo and behold, they do play another Hazaret. We do need to chump it, so we almost died by tapping the Dockhand there. They decide not to attack with Hazaret, which might have been wrong, but as far as they know, we might just be holding a Fatal Push or something, so if the Antiquities War goes off and we make 5 power creatures, they need to have as many blockers back as they can. So yeah, and this is the awkward thing about the Antiquities War against certain decks. When we're not dealing early damage to them with servos, and when they have a bunch of creatures, sometimes they can just live through the attack. Hazaret in particular just kind of laughs at Antiquities War creatures, but whatever. We're doing whatever we can here. We just attack all out. We just need to hope that they're a little bit nervous about what we could follow up with. We need them to do exactly what they did here, which is block with both of their disposable creatures, because we need to just make sure Hazaret's the only source of damage, because we can chump block Hazaret for a while thanks to these Puzzle Knots. So we slam a Puzzle Knot. We are going to be chump blocking Hazaret for a while. The opponent has Baumat Courier. So now we have a choice, and the choice is whether we want to... So we actually don't have a choice here. We just sack the Puzzle Knot, which maybe our opponent wasn't expecting. Hard to say. Block Hazaret, block the Courier. Stay ever so slightly alive. Get Lightning Striked with the card that they drew there. Go to 3. And they get another card with Baumat Courier, so now we're just going to die to this Hazaret in 2 turns. Our only real answer would be a Herald of Anguish to empty out their hand, or another Battle the Bridge. They play out the land, which I guess makes sense. They might be scared of a Herald of Anguish. Hard to say. It's playing against this deck is weird. And we don't find any of that, so we just need Antiquities War. We hit an Aether Sphere Harvester, which would be great, but we are a turn too slow to make much use of that, unfortunately. Pass the turn here, because we were holding a Metallic Rebuke just in case, although I'm not sure if that's going to matter. Oh, it does matter. Metallic Rebuke lets us whack the Baumat Courier. They could just pay for this and attack us with Hazaret Baumat Courier or force to chump Hazaret again. They wind up with a Baumat Courier on the battlefield, and it's still at 2 life. They decide to let it go, which is a little strange, but doesn't matter much either way because this next turn is the one where we get a little bit lucky and win. So here, you're going to see Zalfrin Void be a real hero. We look at the top 5 cards of our library. Our only out at this point is a Battle at the Bridge here. Herald doesn't work because we just get killed by Hazaret next turn. Antiquities War. We can't find a Battle at the Bridge. We do find a Prophetic Prism. It's going to give us a draw. We're going to use Zalfrin Void to scry this non-Battle at the Bridge to the bottom, and then Prism into, there it is, the 3rd Battle at the Bridge. We kill Hazaret, gain lots of life, and then kill our opponent on the next turn with the Antiquities War. Jeez, that was close. So, had to luck out a little bit to win that one. But Game 2 moves a lot more smoothly. Our opponent doesn't have anything on turn 1, neither do we, but we do start to get our puzzles out. By the way, we had to choose whether to keep this hand with 2 Herald of Anguish, 2 land, and 2 Artifact Makers, and a Battle at the Bridge. We eventually decide to because Battle at the Bridge is a very good turn 3 play, and even though the opponent's often going to be able to deal with 1 Herald of Anguish, the fact that we have 2 of them means we can afford to block with a Herald, have it eat a removal spell, 2 for 1, 3 for 1 our opponent with a Herald discard, play another Herald and hope they don't have enough resources to answer that one. The 2 lands was probably the iffiest part because we do need to actually hit a little more mana at some point, but if we get enough artifacts into play, the Heralds can just be cast off of 2 lands, 2 Spire of Industry, so it is what it is. Possibly should have gone down to 6. As it turns out, they have a pretty slow start, nothing but an on-crop Crasher until turn 3. We get to hold up Metallic Rebuke here. And yep, Goblin Chain Whirler is the card we were hoping to counter there. So do not kill our servos, please. We might need those to chump block with. We decide not to trade for the Oncrop Crasher because we really just want to cast Herald of Anguish next turn. So we could have done it without the land, but the land lets us slam a Cogworker's Puzzle Knot first and still have enough black mana to make the Herald happen. So nice Oncrop Crasher, that's going to have to exert now. We knock out an Earthshaker Kenra, they slam another Crasher. Successfully get our Herald out of the way. Again, yes, we're just going to block here. We have plenty of artifacts to throw with Herald, and we're just trying to make sure we don't get triple Lightning Strike out of the game or something weird like that. Because we have Battle of the Bridge, though there's not really any way we lose from this position. So we're just going to tap a bunch of mana, murder the Oncrop Crasher, hold up just enough mana for Herald of Anguish to be able to kill something else. Opponent loses another Kenra. They go for Chandra, Torch of Defiance, which is just does not line up very well at all against this deck. Plus there's just nothing they could do here. They could kill a servo, they could deal me 2 damage. We're going to kill the Oncrop Crasher, untap, kill Chandra, play our other Herald of Anguish, take the last 2 cards out of their hand. Yes, the Heralds do stack, and that is the end of match 4. So last match of the league here. For all the marbles, yeah, there's some strange games here. And we are up against an Esper control list, so very similar to the blue-white control matchup we faced, with a slightly different selection of answers that do not line up well. Save for Braska's Contempt, which does line up pretty well, as you'll see. So we get a first turn Dockhand down, which feels pretty good against irrigated farmlands. It'd be nice if we had some counters, so we don't want to find any more lands. We wind up voiding away this island, so land that basically drew us a card there. Play Prism, draw another Renegade map, okay. Is what it is. So here we're just going to try and get a little bit of advantage with this Dockhand and just wait until we can draw a finisher and hope that we get something down before they can put down a Teferi or something like that. Definitely not hitting off these prisms. And we also are not going to be able to crack these maps to 10 because at this point we've scryed some stuff to the bottom of our deck. It's just not going to be high value. We draw Battle at the Bridge, which is not amazing. But we do get to start using Dockhand, which is a lot of fun. So now I'm pretty sure we'll be able to anticipate our way into something. And our opponent, we're a little lucky our opponent only drew their black source this turn. Turns out they were going to Fatal Push. So we do get this one free Anticipate, but on the other hand, there's nothing in there. We get a Metallic Rebuke, which is fine, but I really wanted a card in this turn or something like that. So we can't do much. We're just going to play out this Puzzle Knot, sit on Metallic Rebuke. Opponent goes ahead and slams Lyra Dawnbringer. Yikes. We choose not to rebuke it because we can just Battle the Bridge it, and we're guessing we're not going to get too many targets for this battle. So we do get to start making servos, and the servos do sometimes add up over time. They can occasionally put down enough pressure that your opponent feels like they need to cast a spell when they don't necessarily have to, when they're not actually dead, and that can buy you time to resolve a finisher. But before we resolve a finisher, we do need to find one. So at this point we've scryed a lot of times. We put Sentinel Totem right on the bottom. On the bottom, Magic, online. There we go. So put that one on the bottom. Kill the Lyra. Make sure we're holding up Metallic Rebuke, of course. Get in. Opponent has another thing they're going to try for, which is Teferi. No, no Teferis for you. We draw another land. Uh-oh. So at this point we've seen half of our lands and 0 of our finishers. Not the best situation. Not literally half our lands. It just feels like that. We can only just attack with servos here and hope they don't have another Teferi. As it turns out, their hand is full of reactive cards, which would be nice, except for the fact that their reactive cards do react to things, which means we might not be able to get down a finisher even if we find one. Meanwhile, we're just cracking it with servos, drawing cards. Our opponent probably has no idea what's going on. That's a good part of this deck, is you have the opponents don't know what's going on factor to work with. And are they going to counter this Prophetic Prism? No, they're going to flashback Torrential Gearhulk and Fatal Push a Servo. Sure. Okay. Does not bother me too much. We draw and hit a Battle of the Bridge. Still not a finisher, but it does let us clean up this Gearhulk. We don't have any targets right now. We might as well just spend the spell, gain the life. We don't have anything else to do. One has a Search for Esconta, so now they are the one with the card advantage. But we finally draw Herald of Anguish. Okay, so it only took 2 scries and 19 cards to get to the point where we had one of our spells that does something. Of course, if they have a disallow, we're still in a lot of trouble, but we'll have to find out whether they do. So we first attack, see if we can bait them into fatal pushing or something like that, tapping some more mana. We cannot, so we just play Herald and hope. And as it turns out, they had a Syncopate. That's not going to counter, so Mana Flood has some advantages. Search for Escada has not flipped yet, and yep, so now they have been 2 for 1 already by the Herald, assuming they can remove it. We're not going to attack with this, we are not going to run into a Settle the Wreckage, we're not going to do it. Just attacking with a Servo here. And we are paid off, as in the end step, they just discard. The Settle the Wreckage you're playing around. Woo! Okay, good. So, Search for Azcanta is going to flip, though, so this is not great. Eventually they are going to find a Vraska's Contempt, or whatever it is they have to answer Herald of Anguish. Still not attacking with it, now that they can Azcanta. There are, like, extra ways to lose to a Seal Away or Settle the Wreckage. We're just going to have our Herald of Anguish discard a card enchantment, try to keep parity with what our opponent's doing. And then with it, they whiffed with Azcanta that turn, which did help. That really helps. Probably threw a Lyra Dawnbringer to the bottom or something. Now they find the Contempt, and now we are again really in desperate need of an answer. We find Metallic Rebuke, which is not that helpful now that our opponent has 8 mana on the board, but all we can do is attack with Servos. At this point I had almost scooped the game, but our opponent's deck just has so many cards that are almost dead against us that it doesn't seem quite correct to do that yet. We're going to wait it out, see what we can find. We can at least apply a reasonable pressure to a Teferi also with the Servos. We draw Merchant's Dockhand, which is not a Karn, but it's reasonable. Let's see if we can do anything with it. We try it, and nope. They're just going to disallow it. Okay, can't do much about that. We're going to keep Azcantaing and keep hitting. Another Settle the Wreckage, yikes. Okay, so Antiquities War looking like not the best of outs. We do find a Karn, though. At long last, the Karn has been found. We swing at some Servos, see if we can bait out a Settle the Wreckage. We do bait out a Settle the Wreckage, this is what I mean. Sometimes the opponent's like, well, I guess I gotta kill these sooner or later, might as well do it now, right? And in this case, they're gonna get punished because we have a Karn and Metallic Rebuke back up. So if they do have another disallow here, we are still in very bad shape. But as it turns out, the thing they had was not disallow, it was Torrential Gearhulk and Metallic Rebuke to the rescue. Now we have a Karn, and we are just going to threaten lethal as fast as we can, no messing around with the silver counters and whatnot. They could just draw Cast Out. Instead they hit Fatal Push, which does kill a Construct. We have Ether Sphere Harvester, which is reasonable, at least helps us apply pressure. They go for Seal Away on the Construct over Fatal Push, which is a little iffy, because Seal Away can also kill Herald of Anguish, but I digress. Instead we just plus Karn, and you see they gave us an Antiquities War? That's because after drawing nothing for a long time, we actually Karned into another Karn in an Antiquities War. I would have just given me the Karn if I were them, because we can't play it, but maybe they think they can settle the Antiquities War. What they don't realize is that the Antiquities War is going to get us a lot more little creatures, get us a lot more value, so you can see there the Antiquities War draws 2 1/1s, and the opponent decides to concede. They've seen the writing on the wall. They just do not feel like putting up with this constant stream of threats from Karn in the Antiquities War. I think it was a little early to scoop, but who knows. And finally, the very last game of the league. We keep this hand, which you'll notice has no black mana, but does have a Renegade, or no blue mana, but does have a Renegade map. That's fine. This mana gaze for this deck is really elegant, by the way. The Spire of Industries and the Renegade maps and the Prophetic Prisms all add up to having just enough colored sources while still being able to run 4 Scrylands, which is nice. We see another Herald of Anguish and like, sure, okay. They have enough trouble dealing with 1 Herald of Anguish, let's give them 2 if we can. Ooh, Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Alright, so we did board out all our battles at the bridge again. We were hoping that we could deal with Lyra using our Tezzeret activations. We did board in both Tezzerets, but Glint Sleeve Siphoner is a little tougher. These negates are looking a little silly now, though it's nice to have the 4th land. All we can really do is attack with Servos and hope that they don't have a way to counter the Herald. They go for another Glint Sleeve Siphoner, so if they don't have Essence Scatter, we're in pretty good shape. If they do have Essence Scatter, we're in very bad shape. So Merchant's Dockhand is nice. It lets us get another artifact on the battlefield before we throw down Herald of Anguish. They could have a Fumigate here, but I'm okay with them killing both of their Glint Sleeve Siphoners if they really want to do that, since we do have a couple of negates as backup. No Fumigate, just going to swing in. And we are just going to not swing in. We could kill the Siphoners, try to kill both Siphoners now using Herald of Anguish so they don't draw a card. But I think that holding up Metallic Rebuke is just much better than depriving them of a random card. We could have cracked Renegade Map to get a land, kill both Siphoners, but we wouldn't be able to hold up Metallic Rebuke because we'd only have one artifact left at that point. So, close call, but I just like holding up Metallic Rebuke plus Negate. Which means I should have cracked the Renegade Map, by the way, because I don't have double blue, so that was a little dumb. Again, not playing it all perfectly, but the deck is just really good. Look at this. All I can really do is keep attacking with the Siphoners. We're going to kill one with Herald of Anguish. They're going to pass the turn back to us. We'll just kill another Siphoner and keep holding up Metallic Rebuke. They think they've seen their chance. They're going to go for Vraska's Contempt. We're going to say no with a Negate, because Metallic Rebuke can also counter Torrential Gearhulk later. But it doesn't matter because they, again, see the writing on the wall, know we're going to kill their other Siphoner, have an active Herald of Anguish, and they may not realize it, but we have 2 more counters in hand, so this game was basically over. And that's the league. As you can see, we had to get a little bit lucky in that first game against Mono Red, and a lot of the deck's advantage is that opponents don't know how to play against it, but hey, unless you all start playing the deck, I'm going to keep winning leagues with it, so, you know, it's up to you as to whether you want to pick it up or not. I really don't see anything in the deck that I would change yet after just one league. I'd like to get a little more experience with it first. The sketchiest card in the sideboard is absolutely a Sahid. I just don't know what he comes in against. Love the flavor text. Not a good enough reason to play him in the deck, but I will definitely run through at least one more league before I start making changes. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you pick up the deck. It's pretty cheap, minus the Karns, and who are we kidding? You need Karns anyway, so you might as well. And it's just a blast to play. You're just attacking from such a weird angle and getting so many little incremental bits of value, and then occasionally attacking for 30. Good old Antiquities War. Alright, see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.